Once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Village of Bartlett Committee of the Whole meeting for June 2nd, 2020. I call this meeting and again ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Kammerer?
Present.
Carbonaro?
Present.
Daney?
Here.
Cabrera?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
Ranky?
Present.
President Wallace?
Here. The one item we have on our agenda this evening in the Committee of the Whole is Building and Zoning Committee, Chairman Hopkins.
Thank you, President Wallace. There's actually two items on our agenda tonight.
Two items, sorry, yeah.
We'll go over the first one, which is the 711-555 West Lake Street. The petitioner is requesting a site plan review for a proposed 7-Eleven gas station at the northeast corner of North Bartlett Road and Lake Street in the B3 Neighborhood Shopping District. The proposed 7-Eleven will be operated 24 hours. With that, Ms. Grill, would you give us a rundown?
Certainly. Can everyone hear me, and can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So the petitioners are requesting a site plan review and special use permits for an automobile service station, packaged liquor sales, and outdoor sales, along with variations for the location of the canopy, parking in the corner side yard, the trash enclosure, and the interior parkway. The Zoning Board of Appeals reviewed the variation requests and conducted the requisite public hearing at their meeting on May 7th, and they did recommend approval. The Plan Commission also reviewed the site plan and the special use permits, and they conducted their requisite public hearing at their meeting on May 14th. They also recommended approval with subject to the conditions that were outlined by staff in the staff report and for additional conditions, and I thought I'd just go over those with you really quick. The first one was the Plan Commission wanted to see the posts that I'm showing here, these metal posts, wrapped with the same materials as the building, and they are now showing that here on this elevation. The second one is the fence along the east property line. See if I can. Located here. The Plan Commission felt that the 6-foot fence should be increased to 8 foot along this east property line due to the location and the proximity of the apartment building to the east. Thirdly, they wanted to see a stop bar added to the site plan and on the site, and the directional arrows for a cross section that shows one in, a left turn movement out, and a right turn movement out, and they did that as well. And then the petitioner was also asked to increase the sidewalk width in front of the 7-Eleven by 2 feet, since we were going to have an 18-inch overhang with cars parked in the front here, and then the addition of planters that were required as part of the landscape ordinance. And they have agreed to do all 4 of these conditions that it is shown on this plan. And they are here tonight if you have any additional questions.
Thank you, Roberta. Is there any questions from the committee?
The only concern that I have is that left out to Bartlett Road. I don't know how close that is to the traffic control light there, but that's a pretty busy street. We're just getting done with the nonsense at Stearns and 59 with the left out of the egresses. There's a right in, right out only off of Lake Street, but how safe is that left turn?
I believe the petitioners can respond to that, but I believe Cook County has, Highway has approved that.
Okay.
Chris, are the petitioners, are they able to unmute?
Roberta, could you tell me who they are?
Okay. Mr. Silverman, let's see here.
Yeah, okay. Mr. Silverman is now able to speak.
Hello, I am here.
There you are.
This is John Silverberg. So yes, so we have gone through the county, Cook County, and they have approved this this turning motion.
Okay. All right. Just inquired, that's all. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Trustee Carbonaro, one thing to point out, currently, if you can see where my arrow is, they've
Yes.
eliminated the closest curb cut that was there before. So this curb cut is gone, as well as this one along Lake Street. So this is actually a much improved, safer scenario.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed that. I thought it was still where it was at before.
No, it's actually shifted. They had two along Bartlett Road, and they've closed one of them.
Okay, so that's farther north then. Okay, Thank you.
Roberta, are they going to be allowing a left turn into across Lake Street into that entrance right there that you just had your arrow on?
down at the
Here?
bottom.
No, along Lake Street down there.
Yeah.
No, that will be a right in, right out.
Right in, right out. Okay.
And that has been approved by IDOT.
And is
Yes.
IDOT turning are they adding a right turn lane at that intersection?
Yes, they are requiring us to do some off-site improvements within their right-of-way.
Yeah, okay. That's all I got.
I have one question I'd like to ask. We currently have a 7-Eleven at Oak and Lake Street. Are they being relocated to this facility, or what's happening with that 7-Eleven at Oak and Lake?
So Dan Aykroyd, representative of 7-Eleven, is also on. I would ask that you guys unmute him, and I'll let him kind of address this question since he is 7-Eleven.
He is unmuted. He just needs to unmute himself.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'll give him 1 second, but he might be having some technical difficulties. I can tell you that right now there is term on that, but it is obviously not the company's strategy to compete with their franchisees. They work together hand in hand, and they have a great relationship. So as time goes on, sales will be analyzed, and they will address that as more data rolls in. But the franchisee of that particular location will always have kind of a first crack at taking on this location, as this is currently a corporate location. And Dan can correct me if I'm a little bit off. I think he's having some technical difficulties.
He's not able to unmute. Oh,
Yeah,
Dan?
he's having some trouble.
Dan, is that you?
Sorry, yep. Can you hear me? Sorry about that.
So, okay.
Yes, from what I understood, the question was regarding the current store. So yes, so we do work hand in hand with the current franchisee of the store there now. We do have significant term left on that lease, which will be taken into consideration as well too. But it seems as how close in proximity the stores are. We are looking more and more into relocating that store, but we are working hand in hand with the franchisee of the current store.
Okay, so just to translate, I think you said you're working hand in hand with the current franchisee.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I couldn't understand him at all. Thank you very much.
Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
What will happen with the store that's existing there if he relocates?
If he relocates, the current owner of the shopping center will release that space.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I just want to say that I want to thank the petitioners. I know I had some issues with some of the soil contamination, so I want to thank them for hiring the environmental consultants and having seems like solid plan for dealing with the contamination on that site. So I want to thank you guys for hiring them.
It's our pleasure, and we look forward to delivering a clean site.
Thank you. Is there any other questions from the committee?
No.
With that, we will send this to the village board for a final vote at our next meeting.
Okay.
Perfect.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item we
Thank you.
have, the next item we have is the building code update 2018. And with that, I will turn it over to Brian Goralski, and he can kind of give us a quick rundown of what you're proposing.
Thank you, Trustee Hopkins. Can everyone hear me? The Building and Enforcement Division of the PDS Department is requesting you update the Bartlett Building Code. When I started in the village in the late 80s, we were under the BOCA Code and the Cable 1 and 2 Family Dwelling Code, which basically consists of these two codes, and that was it. Along with some other code adoptions and interpretations, the code pretty much has stayed the same. The last code update we did was in 2014 to the 2012 ICC codes. We started the 2018 building code update last summer. It's a long process with the 11 codes. The proposed building code is laid out for design professionals and for residents from the beginning of the code to the very end of the code. This is my 6th code update. Keeping our codes up to date is important, not just life safety, but updated technology affects the village's insurance rating for all businesses and residents for federal assistance. Codes are the international set of codes, the state codes, and the NFPA codes. Along with our local amendments, the codes are minimum standards. And our changes are minor, but they are consistent with our local practices. All amendments have been reviewed by all the departments. That's what's taken so long. Today's codes continue to conserve energy, help with communities withstand the impact of natural disasters and climate change, and other changes are in the very last paragraph of the first page of my update. Our local amendments at the bottom of that page is less restrictive in the IRC. The IRC requires full sprinkler for 1 and 2 families dwellings. The village code requires limited area sprinklers and dwelling units, and that will stay as we go forward. Page 2, the codes are listed. A through J, all the codes are the same, obviously, except for, we're updating the 2018. The National Electric Code last update was an 11. We're updating to the 17. The Illinois Accessibility Code hasn't been updated since 1997. That was updated last year in 2018. And letter K is the International Existing Building Code. This is a new code adoption. The ICC removed Chapter 34 out of the International Building Code and replaced it with a standalone code, which is this code here today. It's quite large. Basically, the standalone code is to maintain value of our existing structures in Bartlett while providing reasonable safety for its use. As you can see, I don't know if you can see all the codes on my wall there, but those are all the 11 codes that we are proposing to adopt. And, they're not cheap and, rather, enormous sometimes in their own ways. Basically, the local amendments, I'll just hit some of the high points here. The design standards, the ground and snow loads, they changed somewhat, a little more, and that's largely due to our climate change. They have increased with the wind speed and the design load. The miscellaneous permit fees, which is at the bottom of page 2. We have reviewed and revised. The last miscellaneous permit fees were raised back in 2002. We have 6 categories under our estimated cost of what a permit is based on, construction value. And in 2002, we raised the top 3 just $5. And the next page you can see is the current proposed, existing and proposed fees that we're looking at. And note that the senior discount fee has not changed and is still $35, and we issue quite a number of those every year. The fees from other towns vary greatly. The IRC also has a fee schedule in it. In the back is an appendix. Their fee schedules their construction numbers are slightly lower than ours for fees, but as the costs increase, they exceed ours. Some communities use the Royal S. Means data construction book, but that's mostly for new construction. But most of the towns that I have reviewed use the cost construction like ours. We are consistent in the manner in which other towns review their codes. Some of the other minor changes that we did, extension of building permit was raised from $45 from $35. It was last raised in 2002. Our detached single family homes was raised as a minimum of $1,700 from $15. The last that was raised was in 2002. The increase, however, that does not include the townhouses and duplex or multifamily apartment condo dwellings. They will stay the same. The electrical and plumbing installation permit fees were raised from $40 to $75. These are more in line with other communities. And our home occupation use permit fee was raised from $50 to $75, but that's just a one-time fee. Green building regulations, we have actually added vehicle charging stations are to be required to be installed in construction buildings over 50,000 square feet. I'm actually surprised we don't get more of those. We get a lot more in our residential homes. The last page, fire barriers, that has been clarified with the means to achieve the required protection for fire hazards. And also we incorporated the sound transmission rating between all attached residential uses. The elevators and conveyance systems, that obviously has changed with the height of more than 4 stories. So we have added a local amendment that anything over 3 or more stories would be required to have an elevator in it with stretcher requirements. The plumbing code amendments have been updated with grease interceptors. We've been having a lot of issues with that, so we have more specific penalties and provisions to correct those inspections. Water service minimum sizes are now included in the code language, and that's been clarified. Our fire code has been updated with the help of Mike Heimbecker, the fire marshal. We've actually increased our building area from 1,500 to 2,500 square feet, where the building would be required to be suppressed. That's still under the International Building Code requirements, but eliminates some potential larger garages that would be required to be suppressed. The property maintenance code is really, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's really expanded with more definitions, including our public nuisance sections that we've brought out of our vacant building registry and have added it in there. And also some notice of orders, some fines have been issued for non-compliant offenders. Vacant buildings have been revised several times, and Brian can attest to that. We're almost completely finished with that. And with that, if anybody has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Brian. Is there any questions from the committee?
I'm just curious, Brian. you've listed all the international codes, like that's the main coding agency. But are there other coding agencies and you choose between international and some other?
No, the only other code agency now, see, it was the BOCA, the International and BOCA and the CABO code, and they all three joined one common code group called the International Code Council now. So they all kind of, the Southern Building Code, the West Coast Code, and the BOCA, which is generally the Midwest and Eastern. But there is an NFPA 5000 code, but there's no one that has adopted that. That's the only other building code that's out there. The International Code Council is the most widely code throughout the world, even some of our third world countries now.
I was just wondering if that was the case or if there was something you just chose. And here again, perception of what it takes to do business in Bartlett and to live in Bartlett with the codes and stuff can be somewhat strenuous at times for the residents and for the business owners. I just wanted to make sure we're not going into something that's so restrictive with these codes that we're going to have more problems in the future. But if this is what everyone in every other city and every other town does, then I suppose it's not an issue.
No, we basically need to update our codes for our ISO ratings and all that. So it's always good to stay up to date up on the codes, and everyone kind of follows the same suit. So,
all right.
I would only follow up. Do we make it mandatory when a developer comes in or a construction site that does not have any running water? Do we make it mandatory that they have a hand washing station?
well, any construction sites that are under, they have to provide, porta potties and things like that. But hand washing stations, I don't know that any of our construction sites really have those. Even some of our new construction, as soon as they can get it going, they definitely do.
I know I've been on several construction sites and they've been providing the hand washing stations, especially with COVID-19. I'd like to see that would be a requirement. It's not something that's overly costly, and I think it would go a long way.
Sure.
I don't know that. Is that absolutely necessary with the fact that we have just hand sanitizer that people can use on work sites, as opposed to having some station with a sink and towels and soap and everything else? You know what I'm saying? It's another requirement that another business has to come in and say, "Oh, this is something else I have to do." Whereas in reality, having hand sanitizer would probably do pretty much the same thing.
Well, if you think it's okay to go to the washroom without washing your hands, then...
I never said that, Trustee Hopkins. Never said that.
Well, when you use a porta potty, if there's no place to wash your hands, that's problematic. And I know from experience that a lot of job sites are providing the hand washing stations, and they're pretty effective. They're not expensive. So if you provide a porta potty, I think a hand washing station would be, to me, it would be a necessity. So
some of those porta potties do already have them in it. That is true, if that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's all we're talking. We're not talking about permanent plumbing or a permanent sink. It's just it's a portable plastic, area to dispense water and wash your hands with soap and water and keep your hands clean.
Makes sense.
We can make sure it's added.
Any other questions from the committee? With that, we'll forward this on to the village board for a vote then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Hopkins. That is it for the committee of the whole meeting this evening. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Trustee Kammer, seconded by Trustee Hopkins. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Trustee Kammer,
Yes.
Carbonaro, Carbonaro,
Unmute yourself, Vince. Would you nod off, Vince?
I'll come back to him. Danny,
Danny.
oh,
Ray.
he's muted too. Unmute Ray.
That's a yes from me.
Okay, Cabrera,
Yes.
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Ranky,
Yes.
and who was I missing?
You
Cameron?
got him. No, you got me. Yes, sure.
Danny.
Yes.
Danny.
All right,
Okay.
thank you, everyone. Stay safe. We are adjourned.
All right, good night.
Good
Good night,
night.
everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.